All right, so welcome back to Silver Tears Tarot. And of course, a big warm welcome to anyone who is new. So, I've been promising in a few of the previous readings. We've had some readings lately that made me realize it was time to check in on the lessons again from this soulmate situation. And of course, this is something that we do look into periodically. Um, and we see a steady stream of lessons coming from this experience. So, it's just not obvious all the time what we should be working on next. So this reading is going to be here to kind of help us get at that. As always, it's going to be a general reading. It's for all signs, and it's not going to resonate with everybody. But if you find out this is you, not only does it make sense for you to do to go ahead and jump in and start learning the lessons the way that they're coming out, but also maybe subscribe and look at some of the older videos because this has all been connected. So basically, we're going to do this in the format that has become popular. I've started getting a lot of notes about the quick format that I do that has fewer questions, but I think we might have more answers coming out. And they certainly come out with this really good flow. So we're going to go ahead and use it for the one about your lessons. We're going to open up with, really just the question of the day. What is that biggest lesson that you need to work on right now? But what I'd like to see worked into this is that energetic backdrop that you carry. So I don't know that we could avoid seeing that worked in, but just to put it out there. So your biggest lesson to be working on right now is about patience. Interesting. So this is the Knight of Pentacles. It's a card of slow and steady movement. And what we've seen with your lessons as recently as the extended from yesterday's video, is that, I think it was yesterday, uh, is that things are moving along, they're moving forward, but they are moving, it feels very slowly. And so that's the way it has to go. That's the way that it has to work. Otherwise, you're going to end up overwhelmed and unable to take everything in. It has to come in at a reasonable rate, for a person to do their learning. So we're going to jump in here with the good vibes, or I'm sorry, the good karma tarot, and do a little bit of clarification. Okay, so we've got the Page of Cups in reverse. Okay, so Page of Cups in reverse has to do with not having, this is not having closure, not having an apology, not having the kind of overture that you need. Somebody has, and we've seen it in previous readings, somebody has considered bringing an overture to you and has not done so. However, you are going to be able to complete the story and find your own closure as you move forward with the situation. Excuse me. You've already set some of this energy into motion, but the World card and in the upright and the Page of Cups in the reverse tells me that it may be a little bit difficult to find your own closure. We know that everything's going very slowly, and if you watch the extended out of that last video, this is practically just a continuation of what we were talking about there. And the last card that came out was actually, this knight that we see here, this Knight of Pentacles. So it may make sense to, I don't want to tell somebody to look at an extended video because those are on Vimeo and they have a cost associated with them. But it's the extended for the video that came out just before this one, and it feels almost like it's going directly. This is like the extended for that extended a little bit. And this is admittedly what we were talking about. It was about what would help to move you forward. But it had to do with you finding your closure and how you were going to go about doing that. So here we see that that closure hasn't been found, but this is something that you're going to accomplish. You do already have this set into motion, which was something that came up before, as a little bit of a question, a little bit of an I'm not so sure about this. You're moving forward. You are getting things. It just feels like sometimes it's, I think it's like, it feels like one step forward and three steps back, but it doesn't mean that you're not still moving. your ability to manifest is going to be more significant. You're going to have an ability to truly breathe life into what it is that you want to see in your life. So to create the harmonious lifestyle and the household and the relationship that you want to be a part of, you're going to be able to basically stitch this together with the energy that you're putting together. And it's like one of my it feels like I'm talking about my meditation mantras a lot lately, but honestly there are only 6 or 7 of them, so we'll get to the end of it. But one of them is about gratitude, and it's about getting having a true gratitude for the life that you've lived, the lessons that you've learned, and those who were there along the way. Maybe some special people, but even those people that were kind of extras on the stage of life, those are even part of my gratitude meditation, because they were part of the what fleshed out that situation and allowed it to happen. By the same token, and this one fits hand in hand with the forgiveness mantra, we're looking to accept people the way that they are. And sometimes we also can have gratitude for the way a person is. So even if it has caused us to have to learn a lot of lessons, you will know that you're getting to a significant place with your closure whenever you're able to consistently look back at your person's situation and their contribution to your situation, and find some closure and find that sense of gratitude that you are valuing the lessons that you learned from this so strongly that you appreciate the fact they came into your life to learn them, or to teach it. It doesn't mean that you don't still want to see the person, but to be able to have truly that gratitude requires being able to take that step back, which is something that we also saw is coming for you. So, and that's that for those. So this is interesting. With this format, sometimes I'll just be flipping through the cards, and sometimes I only want the top one, and sometimes we go like 7 deep, and I just roll with it. So we have the Knight of Wands that has come out here. Honestly, when we look at the Knight of Wands, this is about picking yourself back up. And so the idea of picking yourself up by your bootstraps is actually technically impossible, but we still say it. And the idea is that you pick yourself up against all odds and advance forward. This Knight of Wands has that sort of feeling to it. So a Knight of Wands is it's a forward movement. It can be an aggressive forward movement, but in this case, it's confident, but it's confidence that comes from it has risen up from inside. Um, the Death card tells us that something has ended. The Hermit card tells us, and that's as far as we go. So I'm going to turn these over so that we're not getting distracted. But the Death card tells us that something is ending. The Hermit card is telling us that the answers are slow to come in. So when you go into that thinking cave, that hermit cave, sometimes you get in there and you start to find the solutions, you start to find the answers that you're looking for, but you don't find everything that you're looking for. And so here we find you somewhere kind of in the process of all that. So it's moving very slowly. And I asked you in a previous, I think it was in that same extended, to look for an opportunity to turn around and see how far you've come already, because that may be something that helps to give you a little bit of what you need to move forward. It may also give you, if you look into the past, a little bit of what it takes to understand yourself better. And I guess what I mean is, if you look back at the situation, there are going to be memories that come up. If you decided to journal any of this or to write down your impressions, this will be super useful. So go back and look at anything that you may have written down, things that can help you to understand where you actually were emotionally and psychologically at the time that things really kind of started to get difficult for you, and as you were starting to move through things. Go back and take a look at that, and it's going to illustrate for you how far you've come. But there's still something that has to change. And I say change. That's like looking into the future, because the Death card is about something ending and something else grows in its place, and it creates a transformation, but it's not something that happens quickly. Not always something that happens quickly, although you'll often notice the new thing growing in its place relatively quickly. Um, so there's that. That's something very positive to be considered. Let's get one more card on the lessons that you are to work on right now. Just out of curiosity, it feels like we're not quite done yet there. And like I said, I just kind of go with this until it feels like it's time for me to stop pulling cards on a given question. There it is. That's our card. So that two of coins that I just flipped back over into the deck was an honorable mention, and that's about that balance that you're seeking. So both of you, you and your soulmate, are both seeking this. But it's really part of what's going to drive you to find that balance. Part of it is your soulmate uses compartmentalization sometimes and running away from their problems sometimes to help bring them into that day to day balance, because that Two of Pentacles really was more that day to day balance. You are taking a different approach, and for sure, there are certainly some places where you may find yourself. Steeped in fantasy or otherwise some sort of escape that is not necessarily confronting your problems. It is also true that you are confronting your problems head on. You have, and this is a long history of having a hard time kind of managing your emotions. And so this is a card of being able to do that, being able to manage your own emotions and to master your own self and be able to use your discipline where you need to use it. You still cultivate discipline, but you then can push it or point it in whatever direction you need. So you've been cultivating discipline. This is about you learning to apply it in places that have historically been very difficult. So that's kind of heavy, but that's the direction of your learning right now, the biggest lesson that you're wanting to work on. It's about finding closure for yourself, has nothing to do with whether or not you reunite with your person. So the relationship that you have with your person is, and it's also important. It's a different question to be asking. Um, but it's really, you have to be working on this also, because in order to have success going forward with your person, it really comes from these lessons being worked on. And so we see a little bit of not just the lessons that you're working on, but also that energetic backdrop. And frankly, I feel like I said, this is the extended reading to the extended from the last one. I'm probably going to put that in when I write this down so that you guys know, because there are a few of you who are very close to this story and are following it. And I want to make sure that we all have good notes, because this is crazy how it is flowing. Anyway, it also has that, it just kind of has that overall vibe. What are you moving toward? This magician sticks out for me. I'm just going to set it on top. This magician really sticks out for me because of how much you are able to take, um, I don't want to say take control, because you take control by relinquishing control, but you end up being able to influence the manifestation, influence and manifest your own experience. And where things don't go the way that you want, or something is unresolved, you just weave it right in. And so it ends up being this very much manifestation with the universe, but it takes a while to get to a place where you're in the right mindset to do this consistently. And I want to make a clear point about the consistent piece, because you're going to have these kind of flashes of wisdom. You're going to have these moments of clarity that do allow you to co create and co manifest with the universe. You're going to come to a place through these lessons that allows you to do that more freely and more consciously. So, that's super intense. Um, okay, let's look to see what a critical energy is that is acting upon you with regard to these lessons at this time. So we know what you're learning, we know where you're headed. We also know that soulmate piece is heavy on this, but it's not necessarily. We'll ask that with the third question, but with the second question, what I really want to ask is anything else, like a separate, a critical energy that's acting upon you, and it could be soulmate related, but it might not be. So let's take a look at that. Okay. There it is again, that Hermit card in reverse. The critical energy that is acting upon you at this time is that things are unresolved, and it's a tool. It's a tool that you're going to be able to use because this is that feeling of hanging. It's like the hanged man, that, but in the reverse. And I know it's the Hermit, but bear with me because it feels like you're in that thinking cave, and it feels like you are on the cusp. You're on the cusp of learning something, and you know it, but it's taking a long time, which is why this patience is at the, like, the piece that you have to, it's that corner that you have to pull up in order to start learning these lessons, because it starts to flow after that, but you don't necessarily have all your answers. We saw it here, we see it here. You get comfortable with it though. um, we definitely see that that's happening for you right now. You've got some of your answers, but not all of them. You have, oh, you too. So your person, I've been saying this about your person all this time. And it's also something that's happening for you, but maybe on a slightly different scale. So at the end of last year, we started to see that your person was seeing their life in a different light. And in some cases, things were really changing in your person's life. So there were households that were ending, there were difficult things that were happening. But definitely there was this sense of not seeing things the same way and not interpreting life the same way. So here we have you in this place where you no longer are interpreting things the way that you once did. Has to do with at least one difficult ending. This is an ending within your ego, though. It's not the one with your soulmate, but it could have been caused by the one with your soulmate. It has caused you a little bit of a, man, some of these cards are coming out meaning not the textbook answer. So I'm just going to put that out there now. If you're following along and saying, how did you get the hanged man from the hermit? Just because I did. It just, that's what came from it. It was unresolved wisdom, which is very hermit, but it was that sense of you're almost there and you're on the cusp. Here with this Knight of Coins that we have in reverse, though, it's like it's kind of happening again. So it's this sense of inconsistency that is, it's an inconsistency born of impatience, but that impatience is born of pain. It has taken you to a place where um, you have felt like you were no longer in control of your situation, no longer in control of your emotions, and it has drawn your attention to something that has maybe bothered you for a while about certain places that maybe you can usually work around it, and not have to show it off. But there are places where you lack some of that emotional self mastery, and it has a lot to do with feelings of emotional independence. And so, not necessarily that you have codependent tendencies, although there may be several of you that have those. Because I see them in your person in a lot of cases, and that usually goes both ways. It's usually you playing lock and key for one another. However, codependent is not a blanket term. If you look it up, you'll get all of these different potential ways that it can manifest, and just keep in mind that it all has everything to do with the experiences that you've had. But it's thrown you off kilter. This whole situation has really thrown you off kilter. And what you're experiencing now is not getting back on kilter. So you're being very much, you have these emotions that may be raining down around you, around, I no longer perceive my household the same way. There is at least one thing in my past that is impacting me, or some of this is happening now too. There are some places where you've got additional things that are breaking down, whether it's not that primary relationship, it may be something a little different. But there's an inconsistency of energy that is actually, sounds scary, but it's going to free you up to begin to not feel as strongly about this nine of coins, this feeling of a lack of emotional independence. It's actually going to toss you into a situation where you have the opportunity to get another chance at some emotional independence. And I think you're going to get there. I think you're going to do really well with that. It is definitely towards this lesson that we see here in kind of this first, I don't know what we call that, like that first pile, that first set of cards, the question, the very first question. So we saw that you were moving toward some amazing lessons here, but it's got to start somewhere. And it starts with you pulling up the corner on this patience, which we see is a difficult thing to do because of the place that you're in right now. But ultimately, this very relationship that has thrown you into this situation where you're kind of trying to find your balance and trying to find your bearing and figuring out where all the edges are. The very thing that's thrown you into this is going to be the thing that helps you to find solutions as you're going through it. It's given you a sort of strength. So we saw the energy in the last reading coming towards you of your anxiety decreasing and things kind of getting better in that situation. This has a lot to do with you balancing your feminine energy, but don't forget that you've got also got to balance it between the two of you. So it's not just that you guys have to have your feminine and your masculine energies, balanced within one another, within yourselves, but also between the two of you. That's also part of what is ultimately going to happen. But you're going to see that balance within you, and you're going to have it illustrated for you because of everything that you've learned, because of what's happened, because of where your head is at right here. There's also somebody here. This is this is spiritual guidance. The Hierophant is all about spiritual guidance. I don't get the sense that this is your intuition in this case, although I also, we've seen a lot about you reconnecting with your intuition and a need to reconnect with your intuition. Um, but this is more that person who is providing some of that guidance for you that helps you evaluate your decisions. They don't help you make them. Here, you've also got another opportunity to drop some of what you may have been holding on to as a heavy load. So some of you have been carrying a little bit of a heavy load around. And it's just you're going to find as you're reorienting and getting yourself all rebalanced that this load is just not necessary. So be prepared for that. It also makes things go a little bit more smoothly as you're going through this lesson. And so now, as promised, we're going to take a look at your soulmate situation. And what we're going to look at here is what you need to know about your soulmate situation, particularly with regard to these lessons that you're learning. So we know that that's going to be the experiences that you've had with your soulmate are going to be leverage for this lesson that you're currently in. Like this is your right now lesson, this energy, this critical energy that's acting upon you, where you don't have everything you need as far as your information. Things are starting to crack as you look around you and you're like, wait a minute, I don't necessarily evaluate my life the same way as I once did either. I now have to think about that. I have to decide what's truly important. Own it. This is this is telling you that owning it is going to really take you in a much more balanced direction, and just let that fear fall away and move toward what is very positive. But there is also the matter of your soulmate situation. So we're going to look to see what it is that what is it's kind of like asking this question for your soulmate situation. So it's what sticks out the most there. What do you most need to know about your soulmate situation in particular? So we've got the Hierophant in reverse. Okay. It's so sometimes the Hierophant is a marriage card. That's not what this is this time. The Hierophant is very much like the one that we see here in the upright. In this case here, it's about so this was about finding that person that was going to help you and to guide you. In this case though, it's about finding it's about figuring out how to get guidance specifically around this soulmate situation. So, that particularly relevant to the divine masculine in this situation, they tend to want to look to the divine feminine for answers. That is not necessarily what's going to happen here. So it's interesting. If you look at these two cards here, we've got the Two of Cups, where we've got these two people in a partnership. And here with the Hierophant, you see guidance coming from someone else, but neither of them the two people here look very similar. The person that they're in a partnership with versus the people that they're getting guidance from does not look like the same people. So it's the same kind of vibe that I'm getting from this here. It's yes, this is going to be guidance about this relationship, but it's not going to be coming from this relationship. So you have gotten a lot of input from the relationship so far that you are going to want to go ahead and incorporate as you're working toward this lesson, as you're working toward all of these lessons. However, that doesn't necessarily mean that your interaction with this person will continue in the same way. And so, what you've gotten from them with regard to this, a lot of fear, and there's a lot of fear on both sides around this, but a lot of that is kind of what brought you to this place, but it's not necessarily what's going to get you to where you need to go next. So, what's going to get you to where you need to go next is more this lesson that you're in the process of learning. It's about being comfortable in this situation and figuring out what you're going to do while you don't have that wisdom yet, and how you're going to leverage what you've already learned, and how you're going to leverage basically these open wounds to make the best of it and make some real ground on this lesson, although we all know it's not going to go quickly. There's been a lot of fear that comes about as a result of this relationship. Coming closer to the relationship and the person that you're dealing with may not give you the strength, or may not add to your strength, as far as what you need to move through these lessons. So it may be beneficial to find that clarity while you are not next to them. There is a tendency of um, guarding the walls that no longer need to be guarded, and that sense of not being able to let things go because being in each other's presence, even energetically, continues to trigger both of you. There is a door that is opening, and it is opening incredibly slowly, but it's because of the what you have already invested in the picture, that's going to help to allow that door to open. But you've got to give it time, and honestly, it's like that door that is within yourself. You want to leave that door open and not guard it, not watch for the person to walk through it, because your person also has their lessons that they need to work through. That we've looked at some of that in these recent readings as well. Some of those are pretty considerable lessons. They're going to need a little bit of time for that. Leave that door open, wait for them to walk through. And when they walk through, if they're in a good place, then that's fantastic. You guys already have this groundwork that's laid. When they come back, it's almost like no time has passed. However, if they're not ready yet, like, throw them back, make it right. They're coming back to make things right, and you are part of that. You are part of what is. You have a responsibility to both of you to help make that right. So if they are not ready for you yet, there needs to be a way that you can communicate this. And I talked about it before, and I don't even remember which reading it was, but it was about, if they do come back, be gentle with them. Try not to make it a situation where you're putting all your anger on them. This is where you'll want to have worked through that frustration and that anger before you come back to them, because you may still find yourselves in a situation where you're not ready to move forward. This Lovers in Reverse is about not being ready to move forward because there's not really a choice yet to do so. There's always a choice, though. We know there's always a choice. And so the choice, though, may be that they have to destroy their lives, or they have to learn some lessons, or there has to be a combination of those things that has to happen before they're able to come back. So, as we know, it may not be a super quick process. This All of this learning, all of this healing, we've found time and time again, is never a quick enough process. And yet the two of you are moving toward a place, because of this investment, you're moving toward a place of happiness. This is the Four of Wands of a happy new beginning. It may or may not result in a long-term relationship, which sometimes it does with energy like that. But at least you're going to be in a position where, if you decided you wanted to, you'd be able to, because you will have that new perspective. That one that's lacking up here that we saw earlier, here it is. Like, you will have that new perspective. So I'm going to go ahead and leave this here. But I think what we will do, we are going to go into the extended. And when we do, we're going to go in a little bit heavier with the impact around your soulmate, because we see a lot of positivity here, but it's a bit of a mixed bag, because there's the probability of them coming back and not being ready yet. And it's like you have to look at him and say, "You're not ready yet. I've got to find some way to communicate that." So let's look a little bit more deeply into this reunion, not reunion, reconciliation. This is getting on the same page rather than coming back together. So this is reconciliation, where reunion is that coming back together. this is possible if you have a reunion, that's possible if you're able to do a successful reconciliation. So we'll look at the energy around reconciliation with you, particularly as it relates to these lessons, because we're going to look in a little bit more deeply on the lessons as well. Maybe look in, I don't know that I want to continue this one specifically or ask the question again around what you'll need to work on, because with this information that we already have, maybe we can get some additional insight into how best to go about working on it. You've got a lot of great stuff here, but let's see what else we can do. So we're going to look at your person a little bit more deeply, and of course we're going to look at your lessons a little bit more deeply, and maybe we'll see if we can get some more insight on what's happening with you now. So, if this is your story, please do subscribe. Take a look at some previous readings. If you're behind on the readings and you skipped some, don't forget to go back to the last one. It's your choice as to whether you want to go to the extended for that reading or for this one. The information is always below. Um, but definitely take a look and see what other messages are there if this one resonated with you. And I look forward to seeing you in the extended for this one or in another reading.